Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. As always, there is a ton of WWE news stories to get into today, so let's get straight into today's stories, and let's start off with John Cena. Yes, John Cena, this is it's a wrestling story, I suppose, and it's a WWE story because it involves John Cena, but it's much bigger than that because John Cena finds himself in the middle of an international incident. I mean, I laugh there, but really it's no laughing matter because a lot of people are upset on both sides of the argument here. Now, WWE legend, former 16-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion, on the Mount Rushmore of WWE and professional wrestling for that matter, legend, icon, now Hollywood movie and television star John Cena has issued an apology to the country of China after calling Taiwan a country in a recent interview. Now, during a promotional tour for the upcoming Fast and Furious 9 film, which of course John Cena stars in as the main villain of the flick, John Cena referred to Taiwan as a country while speaking to TVBS, sparking outrage among Chinese fans. Now, John Cena responded to this by posting a video message on the Cena Weibo platform, clarifying his comments, though not directly mentioning Taiwan or its relationship with China. This is what John Cena had to say. Now, he actually said the message in Mandarin because John Cena can speak Mandarin. He's got obviously a relationship with the China market in terms of film and all that kind of stuff, because he was a big advocate for WWE to branch out into China. He learned Mandarin for this reason, to help WWE branch out into China, I think to branch out in terms of his own movie career, because if you make it big in the Asian market or in the China market when it comes to any kind of films, action films, I mean, some films like The Fast and the Furious, they are profitable in terms of being these billion-dollar entity films because they're massive in China. Their domestic gross isn't that big. It's the international gross in the sort of the Asian market, in the China market, that is so big. This is why these franchises continue to be made. That's why there's 9 films of this Fast and Furious franchise. It goes on forever, and that's because of the huge international growth. So I can imagine whoever is the studios behind Fast and Furious, I think it's Universal, isn't it? Surely they were, once they heard this incident when it comes to John Cena, they would have been, all up in arms, and that's probably why John Cena said this apology. So he said in Mandarin, this is translated. He said, quote, "Hi China, I'm John Cena. I'm in the middle of a Fast and Furious 9 promotions. I'm doing a lot of interviews. I made a mistake in one of my interviews. Everyone was asking me if I could use Chinese. The staff of the movie gave me a lot of information, so there was a lot of interviews and information. I made one mistake. I have to say something very, very important now. I love and respect China and Chinese people. I'm very, very sorry about my mistake. I apologize. I'm very sorry. You must understand that I really love, really respect China and the Chinese people. My apologies. See you." Now, despite his apology here, some of the fans on Weibo were still unhappy. This is what some users had to say. Quote, "Please say in Chinese that Taiwan is part of China, otherwise we won't accept it." Another one said, "Then you should say Taiwan is China's." Another user accepted Cena's apology, saying, quote, "I like you. I think you truly love China. Don't talk carelessly again about China's territory and sovereignty." Now, during his interview with TBS, Cena referred to Taiwan as, quote, "the first country to watch Fast and Furious 9, a film directed by Taiwanese-American Justin Lin. The viral video received nearly 3 million views on Weibo, leading to Chinese media demanding an apology from John Cena. Now, Fast and Furious 9 was released in Hong Kong on May 19 and will hit theaters in the United States late next month. Now, this comes, of course, on the back of John Cena reportedly just being about to finish filming for his Peacemaker television series, and there is a lot of discussion that he is set to return to WWE in July once live fans return and WWE returns to touring. And it's very controversial. Now, I don't really want to get into like the politics side of things because, frankly, I'm no expert and I don't know. I would assume that given the outrage on social media about this, that obviously there was, again, the Chinese messages on that Weibo service, they weren't happy. But there is certainly a massive outrage on social media when it comes to John Cena from places on Twitter and more of the Western side of the world, or places outside of China, frankly, where everyone's saying that John Cena has essentially, groveled and apologized to China because he's scared of not making money, and he's backed down because realistically, in his interview, he didn't make a mistake. Taiwan is a country in terms of most people's eyes, and they're very frustrated that John Cena's backed down and groveled and apologized. He said, no, I'm very, very sorry. I'm really, really sorry. And as I've mentioned, a lot of people are saying money talks, essentially. And that's the situation. Money talks. Because, as I mentioned, franchises specifically like Fast and Furious make so much money in that international market, in that Asian market over there in China. The Chinese box office is fundamental to that film being a success, being this ginormous, profitable success. And given the fact that they've waited, what is it, a year, 18 months to release this film, if it's now ruined because John Cena upset the Chinese market, they would be like, a bad problem, bad investment for Universal. On top of that, John Cena's probably looking at it going, look, my movie career might be in a little bit of trouble if this big international market doesn't like me anymore, so they're not going to watch my films. I'm not going to make any money. My films aren't going to make any more money. I've put all of this time and effort into being this big movie and television star, and guess what? I might not be profitable anymore. And just like that, it could go up in smoke. And at this point, Cena can't win. Cena can't win now. He can't, because he's upset some people in China. So he's done an apology to China. People are now on the other side of it are upset that he's apologized to China. So there are both sets of people unhappy with Cena, regardless of the outcome that he's done. So it's a very strange situation. And like I said, this is really the first time I would say that I can truly recall social media is kind of questioning John Cena's character, which I don't think is fair. I don't think that's fair, questioning his character. This is a guy that has done, I think it's something ridiculous, hundreds of Make-A-Wish wishes, and he's gone over to tours to entertain the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, and by all accounts, you can talk about his politics backstage in WWE, holding people down, brother. But by all accounts, you can't really question this guy's morals, and he's a strong-willed guy and a good guy by all accounts. And certainly there is a portion of social media that has turned on John Cena because of this apology. Rightfully so or not, I don't know. Again, it's a difficult one to say. Myself personally, if I was to give my opinion, I'm not massively keen on him backing down and apologizing, because it does kind of smell of the movie studios and John Cena himself thinking, I'm going to lose out on a lot of money here, and money talks. And ultimately, money does talk. He's got to make money at the end of the day. But where does the line be drawn between money and morals? That's the issue here. And it looks like a lot of people are upset in WWE about this. This is the interesting part of this as well, is that, as I mentioned, Cena posted the video to China apologizing for calling Taiwan a country during his interview. Now, considering China's global political position, it's brought a lot of heat onto Cena on social media. Obviously, the politics I don't really want to get into. But Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast has reported that John Cena's apology is not going over well within WWE. He tweeted, quote, "This John Cena apology is not going over well at WWE right now." Now, before you question Zarian's credibility here, recently he's broke a lot of stories. He broke NXT's move to Tuesdays, the return to touring to the exact date. He's also broken stories about upcoming set changes to Raw and SmackDown. In terms of Andrew Zarian at the moment, he's on a roll. He's got someone in WWE that's obviously giving him information. So the fact that he's saying that people aren't happy in WWE about this apology, that means there is probably something to it. It depends. And again, I think this is the interesting thing with this one, is that I saw him do a couple of interactions with people on social media about this, Andrew Zarian, and he was essentially inferring that the heat is more coming from the talents as opposed to the officials. I think the talents are upset with John Cena because, for the same reason that many people on social media are upset with John Cena, because he bowed down to China, he bowed down to a country that has very questionable politics and a very questionable regime, and he bowed down because of money, because of production studios or production executives or movie executives telling him to back down. He backed down because of money, all that kind of stuff. That's why people are upset with John Cena, because there's a feeling that he abandoned his morals for cash. That's kind of the feeling. And I wouldn't be surprised if talents within WWE felt exactly the same as you or I or anyone on social media, where they're saying, that stinks. That doesn't feel like that's in John Cena's character, and that's very upsetting. WWE officials, on the other hand, I don't think they would be massively upset by it, to be honest. And I know that sounds very cold and callous, but this is WWE. If anything, if WWE officials were upset with John Cena for backing down and doing this apology to the Chinese government or the country of China or whatever, you would respond and say, really? You're going to take John Cena to task for that, given some of the controversial deals you have with countries, specifically Saudi Arabia, but specifically a country that doesn't allow, well, we've got to having a female match on those cards, on those pay-per-views, but they don't really allow females to appear at the event. Several superstars, including John Cena, don't appear at the Saudi events anymore because of the human rights violations and issues that they have. You've also got previous talents like Darren Young couldn't compete at that event because he's a homosexual. You've got people like Aleister Black and Sami Zayn can't appear there. Sami Zayn because he's of Syrian descent. Aleister Black because he's got religious tattoos on his body. So there's so many people that you're excluding from those events, and given the whole, again, human rights violations and certainly some of the controversial news stories when it comes to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United States over the course of the last 3 years or so, yet you're very happy to take their money, but if it's John Cena apologizing to the United States, WWE officials are angry at that one. So I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Again, to me, that would be a massive double standard, a huge double standard, and I would be stunned if that was the case. I wouldn't be surprised if it's talents that are upset by this, and again, this is why I think it's John Cena can't win here, because he did not go to those Saudi shows. He was one of the first superstars to pull out after the story started to break, really, in 2018 about it. Because he has a Hollywood career, because he has a movie career and a television career, and he didn't want to be involved in it. He doesn't want to touch negative PR, and now he finds himself in the middle of a storm about it. Do I think this is going to affect John Cena coming back in July? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. WWE will have John Cena back whenever he wants to come back because he makes the money. In fact, they might be hoping, well, if Cena's going to struggle to get films or if he's going to struggle to get opportunities because of this drama, we're going to have him back to WWE. They will think that cold and callous because it's all about money. All about money. They might even say to Cena, come back to WWE for a little bit. Let the heat die down. Work a couple of shows, we'll do a bit of rehab on your PR and all that kind of stuff, your image, then you can go back out to Hollywood. We can do the John Cena's characters, hustle, loyalty, and respect, and about helping kids and helping children. This will help all of this. Come back to WWE, come back home, we'll figure it all out. I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Now, John Cena has had people defending him on social media, people that have worked with him in the past, including JBL. He lent his support to John Cena. Since making the apology, the 16-time World Heavyweight Champion has taken a lot of flack on social media, with CM Punk even trolling him. We'll touch on that in a second. JBL, however, stands firmly with his old rival, pointing to John Cena's I can always never say this word, philanthropic endeavors, and saying his incredible track record of making the world better. This is what JBL had to say, quote, John Cena has granted over 600 Make-A-Wishes, a record, supported cancer research, rise above the hate campaign, $1 million of his own dollars for racial equality. He has fought tirelessly for equality, an incredible track record of making the world better. I'll stand with this guy. Now, to be honest, I agree with JBL there. I really do hope out of this that people don't question John Cena's his morals or his character, because I think it's fair that John Cena does have strong morals and does have a strong character. I think really that's why people are really arguably disappointed the most here. I think people are disappointed with John Cena about this is because this doesn't feel in keeping with what we've known John Cena to be. This doesn't feel in keeping with, again, the John Cena that we've seen not just in the ring, but outside of it, outside of WWE and all of these, again, philanthropic elements of him. This doesn't feel like what we expect or what we know from John Cena. And I think that's the disappointing thing as well. Obviously, people are disappointed that he did back down and he did make the apology. And again, the controversial politics of China as well. And that he backed down. And you could argue that he's been manipulated by the money of China and their box office and the movie studios and the production studios saying, apologize, please apologize, we've got to make this film work and all this kind of stuff. And he's getting pressure from all these angles. And I think really that's why people are disappointed here, obviously, is because of the fact that he did back down. And if anything, the bigger deal has been made because he backed down. He could have just... and maybe the nature of the apology, the words used, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. But again, this is a guy that has a really strong background in doing good things for worthy causes. He also is a guy that, from the Chinese point of view, I suppose that he does speak Mandarin because he wanted to work in China as well. It's just it's an unfortunate situation, to be honest, because it is disappointing. And I'm a fan of John Cena. I grew up with John Cena being the Hulk Hogan of my generation. But when I saw that video, I was disappointed too, because it does feel, you know, corrupted by money and a desire just to make things right because of the almighty dollar, and that's quite sad, because that doesn't feel in keeping with John Cena. Now, as I mentioned, former rival CM Punk mocked John Cena for this, in the same way that the Young Bucks have been doing a thing on their Twitter accounts recently, that they post a tweet saying new bio, and then you go to their bio and it says something. CM Punk tweeted new bio. Then in his bio, it says just simply, Taiwan is a country. So CM Punk is with those people on social media about it. And again, I don't think this is the end of this. I'm sure this will rumble on. And I don't think, as I said, I don't think it changes John Cena coming back to WWE. Far from it. If WWE will turn down John Cena coming back, they've got Hulk Hogan back on television. And they've got Hulk Hogan in the Hall of Fame again this year. He's a 2-time Hall of Famer now. They had him host WrestleMania. And I know, and you know, it's just they'll have John Cena back. There's no doubt about that. But like I said, it is disappointing. I was disappointed when I saw that, but money talks, unfortunately, and it's a sad state. It really is. Now, speaking of sad things, there was more firings yesterday. We spoke about this before, that more firings were coming soon to WWE. It was previously reported it was going to be in the NXT UK brand, but it looks like it was at WWE headquarters, because there are, quote, a ton of firings happening yesterday afternoon. This was according to PW Insider. The WWE Digital Department. As soon as I said philanthropic, it's just tied me up. The WWE Digital Department, which would include the WWE Network, has been, quote, extremely hard hit, with J.R. Dolan among those that have been let go. Now, Dolan had previously worked as the Executive Vice President of WWE's Advanced Media Group, and he had been with the company for more than 8 years. Dolan was recently recognized as the finalist for Digital Executive of the Year 2021 Synopsis Sports Media Awards. There are said to be a lot of other employees let go yesterday, to the point that multiple people who survived the cuts have expressed shock and surprise at how important some of the names were. There's also a feeling that some departments may even be folded in together moving forward. Now, there's more to this story. There's a lot more to this story. As I mentioned, according to this new report from PW Insider, WWE has released Brian Pelagato, who was until now was Senior Vice President of Production. Pelagato had been in the role since 2019, having previously worked as Vice President of Social Media. He had been around with WWE for around 9 years. Now, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful had reported yesterday afternoon that more cuts had been made by WWE. Now, obviously, a full list of names hasn't been released or anything like that, because these are employees. These aren't independent contractors, so there's a HR process to go through here. Now, obviously, Adnan Virk lost the commentary position in WWE yesterday. We'll touch on that in a second. But Sean Ross Sapp tweeted this yesterday, quote, "There are some HR exit meetings set for this afternoon for many of those who were let go by WWE. There are some high-ranking people in those departments and long-time supervisors among the cuts." Now, as I mentioned, that everyone was kind of shocked by this, but we kind of have a reasoning behind this, and it includes, as I mentioned, departments being folded and departments being merged together, and it has I don't know if it has something to do with Peacock. It certainly does feel like with the digital side of things that things are changing, and it's interesting because the WWE HR firings are being made yesterday because a number of divisions are reportedly set to be folded together and be overseen directly by longtime WWE employee Kevin Dunn, who is the Executive Vice President of TV Production. Now, I noted previously that a ton of employees were let go. And regarding the cuts yesterday, it's noted that the production and digital divisions have both seen heavy departures. Dunn is taking over the divisions that are being folded together, was expected to be announced to WWE employees later today. Now, it was noted that one of the reasons for so many cuts is that WWE has determined there were too many redundancies across multiple departments over the last year. One example is that there were 2 graphics departments, one for WWE TV production and one for digital. Those departments can be easily merged into to one, meaning WWE can get that work done with a smaller group of employees. It was also said that the departments are a ripple effect of the company running under the COVID-19 pandemic, and seeing that they can get by with much smaller number of employees across the board. A source noted that throughout WWE history, they have shown that they can cut it to the bone if needed and still get things done. This is the latest example of that. Now, it's an interesting report. That it is a very interesting report. That the feeling is that the COVID-19 pandemic had an influence on it. Not so much in the sense that of budget cuts or anything like that. More so that they realize actually we don't need that many people and we can still do the job. And it's an interesting point of view because the pandemic has changed things fundamentally when it comes to all of that kind of stuff. The pandemic has changed things in the sense that yes, budget cuts were made, and yes, all companies had to work on a tighter budget and all that kind of stuff, but it's kind of like the working from home or working remotely kind of situation, isn't it? That a lot of companies have realized, wait a minute, we don't need to go into the office anymore, and all of these people we had before, we still got things done this year, and we still had a relative amount of success this year despite having less people and despite people being furloughed and people being let go and working from home. Wait a minute, we have to change all of this, because we realized that maybe we were spending too much money. I just think I think, and when it comes to anything with WWE and people and letting people go, I get it. It's business, and at the end of the day, WWE is a corporation. They are a business, and unfortunately, cuts and people getting let go, people being made redundant. It's horrible, but it's part of business. I'm not complaining about that. What I do think is questionable, shall we say, is that WWE, I mean, they love to brag. They love to brag how profitable they are and how record revenues they have, and oh, look how much money we have. And then you'll have Stephanie McMahon retweeting stuff about how great they are to work for. Oh, we've been nominated for this award, how great we treat our employees, and all this kind of stuff. And then it's like, yeah, it's always around the top. Their timings are terrible, WWE. Their timings are terrible. Just after WrestleMania, just after fans are returning, get rid of some people. Just as we're going to have a quarterly earnings call where we announce we've got record revenue and record profits, get rid of a load of employees. All this kind of stuff, and they are so cutthroat. And that's why they are where they are today. They are a billion-dollar publicly traded company, but they are so cutthroat, so cutthroat. And that's what it is. That's what it is. Now, in addition to the WWE Digital side of things, WWE also cut a number of international office employees and WWE Studios employees. This is according to PW Insider and Deadline. It was noted that the film, TV, and social media divisions in Stamford, Connecticut, and Los Angeles, California were impacted, with WWE Studios seeing layoffs in features, TV, and digital/social media, which was related to the WWE Advanced Media Group cuts. Now, Deadline backed up the previous reports on various departments being consolidated into a single division, with a smaller staff running those operations, which was reportedly led by longtime WWE employee Kevin Dunn, who is the executive producer and chief of global television distribution for the company. Now, Deadline described WWE Studios' cuts as deep, and they were described as a bloodbath to PW Insider. Deadline noted that WWE President and Chief Revenue Officer Nick Khan broke the news of departures today by phone call. It was noted that Khan, in another show of his growing power, will personally be overseeing the international offices in order to keep them in closer alignment with WWE HQ in the United States. It was noted before that Jay Rosenstock was released from his job as WWE's Executive Vice President of International. Rosenstock's departure was part of the international changes. Rosenstock was responsible for overseeing WWE's 8 international regional managers, but Khan will now handle those duties. WWE Human Resources had a brief call this afternoon to confirm what had been reported earlier today, that employees who remained in the Digital Advanced Media Group divisions would now report to Dunn in the TV department. The call reportedly did not consist of much more than that. It was noted before that an employee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, and it's believed that the layoffs will be discussed then. So it's interesting. I mean, this is a big story. It's a very big story, and it's been noted that at least 35 people were let go, and it's certainly a big corporate restructure, a massively corporate restructure, and we'll have to wait and see what the ripple effect of it is. I think it's fascinating to hear that Nick Khan is growing and getting more power. I think that was evident earlier this year when we had the build to WrestleMania, and you started to hear Nick Khan's name come up, certainly more in investor calls, but also in interviews that he was doing with publications. And the fact that he's fired the executive vice president of international and just gobbled it up, and he'll take on his duties as well. The guy's got a lot of power in WWE. He's got a lot of stock in WWE. Now, Vince McMahon, of course, is the end-all, be-all of the company still, and still has the final say. But this is a guy in Nick Khan we're going to hear more and more about, I think, going forward over the course of the next couple of months and possibly years, because it definitely does feel like, doesn't it, that this is a guy that's growing in power and certainly wielding it when it comes to cuts in WWE. I think it's a massive shame when it comes to WWE and their digital department as well, because this is a company in WWE that their social media, if we'll just focus on their social media, but also, I guess, digital in terms of YouTube and that kind of stuff, the social media department and digital department of WWE is one of the best things they've got. WWE, for all of their faults, they are quite, and have been for a while, I mean a long time now, been a pioneer of things on social media. They were early to adopt the social media approach and pushed it hard on their television. They've got millions of subscribers and followers. Some of they beat out, I think it's like the NFL and the NBA and all that kind of stuff on either YouTube or Twitter or something like that. I mean, they are very well followed. They are very well backed, and they do great digital content, exclusive digital content for their YouTube, for their social media platforms, for everything. And that boils down to their digital and social media department. They've got exclusive digital and social media shows. The Bump comes on today on YouTube, all that kind of stuff. WWE is very good at that, and that doesn't get anywhere without great employees and real dedicated and hardworking employees. And it's horrible to see it be so cutthroat, and something that was so successful just be cut down because they realize we can make more money with less people and still do an okay job. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day, and that's very disappointing. It is very disappointing, and it's very sad. I have no doubts hopefully these people will land on their feet. They're the ones that were let go, and look, we might hear some more stories. I guess the difference is you don't tend to be tied to when you're let go from a company. In terms of an employee, you might have to sign a confidentiality agreement. So I don't know if we're going to hear any shoot interviews of any of these people. I think people will try, but whether or not we hear that, there might be, because these are employees, so they'll have, if they're being made redundant, there'll be severance packages, and as part of those severance packages, they'll probably have to sign confidentiality agreements, especially those in executive positions and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot that goes with that. So I don't think we should expect any shoot information or anything like that anytime soon. Now, speaking of one of the people that was let go yesterday, Adnan Virk. Now, I don't think he had anything to do with the cuts, but he was let go yesterday. We did a video talking about it. Now, Adnan Virk has responded to the post talking about his departure from WWE, and he has noted in a tweet that the weekly travel, along with his other jobs, was a grind for he and his family. Now, Virk said he was grateful to WWE, everyone in WWE, including his Raw commentary partners Corey Graves and Byron Saxton. He said, quote, "Thanks to WWE for a wonderful opportunity. The weekly travel, along with my other jobs, was a grind for me and my family. I'm grateful to everyone with the company, especially WWE Graves and Byron Saxton, for being such fantastic teammates." Now, Virk, of course, replaced Tom Phillips as the lead Raw announcer last month, making his debut on the post-WrestleMania 37 edition of Monday Night Raw. That change saw Corey Graves replace Samoa Joe, who has since been released. Now, there's no word on yet what WWE has planned for the Red Brand announced team moving forward, but we should get an idea very soon. He can say about the grind of travel. If he was struggling with travel now, it's probably the right thing, to be honest, because WWE is going back to touring very, very soon. So, I mean, if he's struggling with travel now, it's, get out now. I mean, if he went to WWE and said, look, it's not working out, I don't like the travel, I've got these other jobs as well, it's just a bit too much for me, I think WWE would have probably bit his head off or ripped his hand off and said, you know what, yeah, fine, go, because it wasn't working out. It's very obvious it wasn't going out, it wasn't working out. And that was it. It wasn't working out. He wasn't good at it. He didn't have a clue about the product. He wasn't familiar with the product. He didn't know any of the stars. He didn't know any of the moves. He was completely out of his depth. Not that he's a bad broadcaster by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure he's very good at doing sports commentary and sports announcing for baseball, but this wasn't for him. This job wasn't for him, and it was as simple as that. So I think if he went to WWE and said, you know what, I just don't think this is working out for me, the travel, they would have been like, the travel? You're going to Florida every week to the same place, let alone when you're going to Texas and then straight to Los Angeles and then back to Florida and then to Portland and then to wherever. That's travel. So if you're struggling with the travel now and you're not very good at it, it's not for you, man. It's not for you. And I think that's probably it. So I hope Tom Phillips returns, but We'll have to wait and see. Now, a website, a very adult website, Cam Soda, has offered an MMA job to former Raw announcer Adnan Virk. And it's offered him 50 grand to do a play-by-play for their upcoming Fight Circus MMA pay-per-view in Thailand on Saturday, June 19. I doubt he will take it. I think it would be funny if he talks about the travel was too much, so I'm going to go to Thailand in June. So I don't know. I thought that was a funny story. But let's talk about touring, and let's talk about the backstage reaction from WWE talent to WWE's return to touring. Now, there's said to be mixed reactions to the returning of touring within WWE. It was reported by PW Insider that there is a lot of excitement about going back on the road among those on the main roster. Some wrestlers are hopeful for pay increases due to merchandise royalties from live events and, I guess, just increased dates. Some on the roster are being cautious with their expectations when it comes to how the shows will draw amid the current COVID-19 pandemic. There's said to be a lot of internal interest in how tickets to the initial shows will sell when they go on sale this Wednesday, especially Money in the Bank since it's a pay-per-view event. To be honest, again, I think a lot of people are interested in this. Will they draw? Will they sell? There's the expectation. I think people are almost hoping, aren't they? They're hoping that because of the fact that people haven't been able to go to shows, and because that people haven't been able to, as I mentioned, go to shows, and because they haven't been able to get out maybe of the house and go and attend these WWE events, that people are going to be chomping at the bit to go to these shows. And I don't know if that's the case. I really don't know if that's the case. That might be part of it. And I think, for instance, Double or Nothing, I mean, it's close-ish to selling out. That's 5,500 fans at Daly's Place. Texas is a bigger state, but I think for Double or Nothing, a lot of people are flying in. It's going to be fascinating to see. I think there should be cautious optimism. I think it's a good time to go back on tour. I think at this point that there is an element of safety, obviously with vaccinations and stuff like that. I don't think you should throw it all away, though, into reckless abandon, because they're not there yet. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but we're still in that tunnel of the pandemic. And it's going to be interesting to see. I still don't think they're going to get back to a point where they go to 5 live events per week. I think that's ridiculous. Even if we weren't in the pandemic, that was ridiculous anyway. It's an old-fashioned model, and it just doesn't work anymore. Will they be able to do that in the pandemic? I'd be stunned. Obviously, having crowds back on a regular basis helps the product, but there do have to be people that will be willing to go to the event. And how do you make that look in terms of production and television? Make no mistake about it, whilst it is a great thing and whilst it's very exciting, there are going to be challenges ahead, because again, I don't know if crowds are going to be there on the consistent basis every single week like they were before. Because, again, once you go to these different cities and different states, are they willing to go out? You would hope so, considering they've been in for a year, but maybe not. Maybe there will be some caution. So that's certainly very interesting to see there as well. And finally, speaking of those touring, we do have a bit of an update when it comes to Money in the Bank tickets, because tickets for the upcoming Money in the Bank pay-per-view are selling out quickly, per several reports. Pre-sale tickets for the event to be held at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, started on Tuesday and flew out of the box office at a rapid notice. It was noted that in the evening, only 247 tickets were left out of the 11,634 tickets listed for the event. A Twitter account operated by a fan added that thousands were in line trying to get their hands on tickets for WWE's first pay-per-view event with live fans since WrestleMania. In an update, the fan then noted that 1,225 tickets were made available later. So, according to Ticket Smarter, 1,193 tickets are still available for the show. So, it looks like, to be honest, that these tickets are selling very well. And maybe that's what WWE was hoping for. Money in the Bank was the big indicator. It looks to be a success, a thumbs up there. The next big indicator, of course, will be the Raws and SmackDowns. And once we continue those, there is probably, you would hope that the Raws and SmackDowns the first ones will sell out because there's anticipation. 2 or 3 weeks in, is the anticipation still there? That's the big discussion point. So certainly going to be very interesting. But look, guys, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on the news stories you've spoken about today? John Cena's apology to China, WWE Digital layoffs, Adnan Virk commenting on his departure, and WWE's return to touring, an internal reaction. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.